Hi everyone, welcome to the Fight with Teddy Atlas. I'm Teddy Atlas III, joined by International Boxing Hall of Famer, live stream extraordinaire, my main man, Teddy Atlas. How we doing, bud?
Good, a little tired. We did a lot of live streaming Friday, Saturday, and last night, Sunday. Today's Monday. Normally we'd be doing a podcast, all the people out there know it by now. We would be doing it on Sunday. We get up on Monday, but we wanted to give you the Inoue fight, which was Sunday night. So we waited. We did the live stream, and we put off doing the podcast till today, which is Monday, and it'll be up tomorrow. But yeah, a lot of live streaming, a lot of fun being with you. By the way, that color looks very good on you. It's like I'm thinking about the Miami Dolphins, but it really looks good on you. And I hope everyone enjoyed the Kentucky Derby, the Run for the Roses. I hope everybody also had a good Cinco de Mayo. And now, I already know, I guess we're going to commiserate a little bit about the two bad nights of boxing. There's no getting around it. We're always liking to give the truth here. But, there's nothing but the truth. It spoke for itself. Friday and Saturday, just not a good 2 days for boxing. But as I had said on a post that you asked me to put up before the Inoue fight, and I think it was right on the money, was that, hey, if you people have watched movies in our childhood, we've all watched the movies with Godzilla, right? Godzilla in one of the movies came back to save the world. So it was up to the monster to come back and save boxing from a dismal weekend. And I thought he would. And he did. The monster, like Godzilla, never disappoints, never lets you down. And he came back with his partner, because there was two fights that night. Espinoza, the world champion. Both of them, the styles, just everything, their styles, their ferocity, everything was just the opposite. It couldn't have been a more polar opposite of what you got on that weekend or the early part of the weekend on Friday and Saturday. And look, there's real quick, without dissecting it right now, but real quick, I could be a doctor. I could tell you the possibilities of what was going on by looking at the symptoms. Boxing needs a doctor. I'll be Dr. Atlas for 2 seconds, where it could be a combination of you want to make an excuse for those nights. I don't think anyone wants to make excuses, but there's always a possibility that there's a reason for something other than maybe sometimes what is not as something that we want to face. Maybe there is an excuse. Maybe Canelo's getting old. Maybe these guys are spoiled. Maybe they're making too much money. Maybe there's no urgency in them. Maybe they don't have the fire they had to have some years ago when their bank accounts weren't as large. And when they weren't driven to fights in Batmobiles. Maybe, that's just me taking a little guess that maybe there's a possibility that was at play a little bit. Maybe I'll go down another road. I know some people get a little crazy with me, but it's okay. We've been there before. We'll get out of it. We'll get through it. Where maybe some of them are overrated. Oh, did you ever think that? So it could be that they're spoiled. It could be that they're getting fat bellies. I'm not saying figuratively. I think you understand what I'm saying, that they've become too comfortable. Like the great Marvin Hagler used to say, boy, what we would do to have him back. But what he used to say, it's hard. It's hard to get up at 5 a.m. and do road work, Richie, when you've been sleeping in silk sheets. It ain't easy, and it shows. So it could be a myriad of things. It could be all of these things. And it could also be that a few of the fighters on the card was suffering from lack of confidence, or they were damaged goods. They were coming from a bad place, and they need a little more time to get their confidence back. Maybe that's Haney, or maybe they don't ever get it back. We'll go into it a little deeper, and maybe you want to even go down the road that they were missing something, that some of them were missing something that they had in the past that didn't give them the confidence. There's a whole bunch of things. We'll go into it piece by piece once we get to all those fights. But I think that kind of tells our audience coming out of the box what to expect.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And with that being said, we'll jump right into it. A lot of fights to cover all over the map here. We start off Friday night, Times Square, the heart of New York City, where the ball drops on New Year's. As you said in one of your posts, the ball did not drop, but some of these fighters' stocks did. We'll start with Teofimo Lopez versus Arnold Barboza. Like the trend and the theme most of the night, not a lot of action. I thought for what it's worth, out of all the performances, Teofimo Lopez had by far the best performance between the fighters on Friday and Saturday. He boxed well, looked explosive in spots, and Barboza, he just struggled to cut off the ring. He was chasing around, unable to pull the trigger. In the end, Teofimo Lopez gets a decision win back in his hometown in New York. What'd you think of this one?
Yeah, listen, Teofimo, more athletic, more gifted, more talented. Like you said, neither one of them put a barn burner on, but Teofimo did more. He played the part of the boss for the most part all night. Somebody's got to be the boss. Somebody's got to be the boss. Now, I don't mean my friend Tony Danza, the great actor. I don't mean him. He was the boss in a TV series. But somebody in life has to be the boss. And Teofimo took that role. Barboza didn't. Whether you're going to do it on the outside boxing, you don't have to do it coming forward. I'm not putting that on your shoulders. You do what you're comfortable doing, what your temperament tells you to do, what your technique is taught to do, what your talent allows you to do. But you got to be the boss one way or the other. You could be aggressive going backwards. Yeah, I know that sounds crazy. I've told fighters that. I've taught fighters that. You can be aggressive going backwards, where you're in control and you force the guy to follow you. You hit him with a hard jab, you back him up a little bit, you push him a little bit, then you pull him in. You aggressively take control of what you're doing in the ring, where even going backwards, you're the boss. So I think that Teofimo did that. I think he's the only one where his stock didn't plummet, as you said. And I'm glad that he's a hot and cold guy sometimes, Teofimo, but he's very talented. And I'm glad that he had the switch turned on because nobody else did. He had the switch turned on Friday night, and I was happy for him. I was happy to see this. He's talking about moving up in weight class. I don't know. I mean, that could be a little difficult. There's some big welterweights there. He's got talent.
Throwing out boots in us.
Yeah, I mean, I give him credit. Give Teofimo credit for whatever. He's got that name Takeover, and then he tripped a little bit on a banana peel, after the Lomachenko fight, and everybody was ready for him to be anointed as the whatever that is, the great one, the next great one, and of our time right now. And then all of a sudden he had the Barboza fight. He had a couple other fights that, obviously were closer than projected, closer than people thought it would be or should be. Some people thought he might even lost one or two of those fights. But never doubt his talent. I never did. But I also want to just finish with this. For all the craziness and all the stuff with him, he's a guy who really wants to challenge. And that's why when he calls out boots, I kind of believe him. Like he's a guy that really he's a guy that I think that part of the problem, and I said this a year ago, when he's hot and cold, or even 2 years ago, when he's hot and cold, some people say, is he really as good as we thought he was? Or maybe maybe he's not as good as we thought he was. And I always said, no, I think sometimes he's not there. He's not mentally there. He's not into it. I know it's not an excuse, but some people have to be in and threatened. Some people have to be in a game or a scenario or a fight, as we're talking about right now, where there's risk, where they're challenged. Otherwise, they just don't get the juices flowing to really bring all that talent to the top. And I think that Teofimo is one of those guys. I really do at this point. I wasn't ready to say it before, but, well, actually about a year ago, I did touch on it. I think he fights up to his competition. And I think that, again, that's at play here. And then when he calls out Boots, it kind of speaks to that. I believe him. I believe that he knows that he needs to be challenged, and then he'll be at his best. Let's move on.
That's a great point. I'm glad you said that. I thought to myself watching it, he looked the most focused and locked in I've seen him since the Lomachenko fight throughout, consistently. So
fighting an undefeated fighter, challenged, yes.
Yeah, we'll move it on to the next one. The co-feature that evening at Times Square, we had Devin Haney versus Jose Ramirez. Now, Haney entered this fight 12-1 favorite. This was his first fight since returning, since the brutal beating he took versus Ryan Garcia. So there's a lot of questions coming into this one. First of all, for Ramirez, as you said, is he a little shop-worn? You know, at his age, going into this fight, the back end of his career. And then for Haney, mentally, where is he? Is he going to be able to shake that off? And is it going to be lingering effects? I think the answer I got from this one is there's still lingering effects. He was afraid to pull the trigger. He boxed. He moved. There was zero action. It was really frustrating. Ramirez, like Barboza, struggled to cut off the ring, was chasing around. Haney wins a unanimous decision. Still remains undefeated. What'd you think of this one? What'd you think of this performance overall?
I know we're not playing golf. But every once in a while in life, just like in golf, you deserve a mulligan. I'm giving a mulligan. That means you get a free shot. I'm giving a mulligan. Something went wrong. You could explain. You're a golfer. You could explain what a mulligan means better than me.
Yeah, you just said it. It's a free shot. If you lose a ball, it doesn't count. You do another one. It's like a breakfast bowl. You get a freebie.
Yeah, and I just think that, and I don't give out mulligans usually, but I just think in this case that Devin Haney deserves a mulligan until we have more information, until we have another fight, and then no more mulligans. But he deserves a mulligan. He deserves a pass. And I'm usually I'll hold people to their feet to the fire. And I have no problem holding Devin his feet to the fire when it's time. But in this one, he took a terrible physical beating in his last fight. And I think his father did the right thing, giving him a lot of time off. But a combination of inactivity, a combination of taking the punishment he took and the mental damage that does, to your psyche, to your inner spirit, to your confidence, that it does to that. It takes time to get over that. And sometimes you don't. I don't know if he's going to get over it. I'll say it right there. I hope he does. But he's not over it yet. But this is what I do know, being in business 50 years. This is the process. If you went to a doctor to get over it, this is the prescription that he would prescribe, that you have to come back gradually and get your confidence back. It might take 1 or 2 fights for him to get back, or he might never get it back. We have heard the saying. This saying is there for a reason, bud, that where you've seen guys, and often undefeated fighters, champions, whatever, you see fighters take a terrible beating. A lot of times you would hear the old timers say, he might never recover from that. He might never be the same. That might is hovering in the air of Devin Haney's career. I hope it passes like a cloud passes with a little bit of a wind. And that wind would be a couple more wins or one more win. And getting back there and letting himself know, his inner self, him, forget about what other people say, letting him know that he's okay. That he's okay. That's what this fight was about. He's going through the process of trying to heal. And I don't think, one thing I think he showed, he's physically okay, but he's not mentally okay. He's gun shy. He couldn't pull the trigger, as you said, you put it the right way. He's mentally not back. He is not healed in a psychological area. And 75% of this business is in the psychological area. So I believe that could be, again, the mulligan, the excuse for that performance. I know people want to say other things, and maybe they're going to say he was overrated. Maybe they're going to say that like the other ones, that he's made a lot of money and he's made whatever. I don't think that's it. Not with Haney. I'll get on the other ones. Don't worry. But Haney, no. I think it's for what I said, and you got to give him a little more time. Give themselves a chance to come back. And as far as Ramirez, he never had quick feet to close gaps, but he's always been a warhorse. He's always been a warrior, a battler, a guy who has to get close to you, go to the body, get inside, and he's been in a lot of tough fights. Former champion, he's been around, he's getting older. When you start to get older and you fight that style, you start to see what you saw with Ramirez, that the engine's running slower, that it's harder to get in and do the things they used to do quicker. The punch output's not as much. The fire is not as bright. It's not burning as bright. After a lot of tough fights, that same energy is not there for whatever reason. Father Time has a lot to do with it. The style that you fight with. Mayweather could fight to be 110 because he's got that style where he's not taking a lot of punishment. But when you got a style where you're taking some punches the way Ramirez did, your shelf life is shorter. And it's not only shorter physically, it's shorter psychologically. People don't understand that part. To keep facing the devil, to keep going into that fire, to keep having the nerve and the push to go in there and face that and put yourself in that threatening position time and time and time again. When that's your style, that wears you out. That can only be done psychologically so long. As the great Joe Pesci said, I'm done with this one.
Yeah, you covered that great and made some really good points. I get what you're saying with the mulligan, but what I would say in response to that is, I know it's all about winning. You get the win, you move on to the next one. Many times, Floyd Mayweather's fights maybe were boring to some, and he was running, right, as opposed to, as we say, boxing. But at the end of the day, you win and you move on to the next one. As I said to the live stream to you, this one did feel different. The damage to his marketability, this one felt a little different than just move, survive, and advance. I'm very curious to see what will be next for Devin Haney.
He will advance. Listen, he survived. He's in position. He will advance. I get what you're saying. He will advance with a little more tarnish in a way where, not psychologically, not physically, because obviously nobody really got hit in this fight for the most part. That's part of the reason why we're talking about Friday and Saturday being so underwhelming for the audience, for the fans, for the sport. And it didn't do the sport any favor. But he, as far as his stock, as far as the belief of, in him from the outside, yeah, that got blemished. That got blemished. But again, as I used the analogy of being a doctor before, and what is the prescription to get better for Haney, and I already said it. Well, the prescription to get better for what you just touched on, what it felt like, and about his image being, more tarnished as far as people believing in him. Just get one good win, baby. And that gets fixed fast. People forget fast.
That's so true.
There's one 3-letter word that all people care about when you've done something underwhelming or whatever we're talking about in this kind of way. There's only one word they care about: win. Like your former boss, the late great Al Davis. Just win, baby. And so that can be fixed. Bang. That can be fixed real quick. Like taking a B12 shot to get a little boost, to get a little energy, Drinking one of those quick energy drinks. Boom. You get a buzz. Just get a win. Bang. His career will be whoop. People will be saying, oh, yeah, I love that guy. How quick they forget.
That's so true. We'll move on to the main event there in Times Square. Ryan Garcia versus Rolly Romero. Ryan Garcia's first fight since the match versus Devin Haney, the 1-year suspension for PEDs. And unfortunately, another dud. You said it on the live stream, and it wasn't take nothing away from Romero, but it wasn't as much of what Romero did. It's what Garcia didn't do. And I don't know if it was being in the Batmobile, not being able to move around, being a little stiff. Maybe he got nauseous from some of the fumes. I don't know what it was, but he had zero
You're stretching it now. Now you're stretching. Now you're, I'm wondering if you're his publicist. Now you're getting out there, buddy. I mean, you're right. I agree with you. You can't warm up. You could be stiff. You're sitting in a car. Yeah, all of that. The fumes, you're going a little far.
Yeah,
I think the windows were closed.
Where's the speed, the great speed we talk about? Where was the power in the left hook? Where was anything, really?
Where's the belief? Where's the belief? Where's the confidence? You can have all those weapons, all those artillery, all those abilities, but you can't use them if you don't have the belief to use them, if you don't have the belief system, the confidence. You have to have the ability to take those great talents and project them, show them. And how do you do that? You do that by having fire, by having ambition, by having desire, by having belief. And you have to question those things.
Yeah, no question. There was no fire. There was no urgency. And I thought maybe the second round knockdown would wake him up and bring some of that. And it didn't. It just continued through the course of the fight. In the end, Rolly Romero wins a boring but easy decision. What'd you make of it overall and for Rolly Romero?
All right, first things first. We'll start with the guy all the attention was on, Ryan Garcia. I think people expect me, well, I expect myself, so I shouldn't even say that, to shoot it straight and to not worry about either side of the street. People are going to like it, not like it. I'm not here to be friends with people. I'm here to give my opinion based on the experience of all these years in boxing, and to give it completely unaffected or uninfluenced, not influenced by anything other than what my experience tells me, not by anything else. And I like Garcia, but that has to be put somewhere else. You got to wonder. You're not looking at everything and using everything here if you don't wonder if he was dirty the last fight, I should say, with Haney, right? We don't know. We don't know for a fact because he says the tests were tainted and then it was back and forth with the samples, but it did come out positive at least. And then it got kind of it got kind of very confused. Although he was bigger, he didn't make weight. He looked big. It walked like a duck, it quacked like a duck. Sometimes it usually means it kind of is maybe a duck. But there was a lot of questions even after most people pronounced him guilty of the PEDs. There was still stuff in the air. But I'll tell you one thing. If he had taken the PEDs, which is possible, right? Because at least one of the tests he failed, and like I said, even though it got a little foggy, if he was dirty, and this time we presume that he's clean, then it'd be fair to say that he performed like a guy who didn't have the help that he had the first time. Not just the physical help, not just that it made him more explosive, but where it gave him the confidence, that it gave him the juice, it gave him the belief that, because you only take PEDs because you're insecure. Yeah, you're looking for an edge. I understand all that, football, baseball, everywhere. But also, you think you need an edge. That's part of it, especially in boxing. You think you need an edge. You feel like you need some help to face that knock at the door when it comes. And it's always going to come, where the devil knocks at the door during the fight. If it's a tough fight, sooner or later, that knock's going to come at the door where you're gonna have to face that devil, those demons. And those demons are your doubts. And most people face them on their own, by hard work, by discipline, by, just forging confidence, forging their talent, forging their mindset. And they get help from their upbringing. Maybe they had an upbringing that helped them, a harder upbringing, an upbringing where it was harder than some people's, where they had a harder father, a drill master father that prepared them for that, whatever it is. But they go and face what they got to face on their own. It's kind of like when you see these guys that are the muscle builders. You see the ones that are natural and the ones that are not natural. Yeah, I mean, you see it, the difference. The ones that are not natural, again, they want that extra boost. They want a little more. But it's different in boxing. You want the help, again, to deal with that knock at the door, to help to deal with the doubt, the insecurities, the inhibitions that we all have. But they make a choice to use something to help in those areas. If he was clean this time and wasn't clean the last time, he looked like a guy who knew he didn't have that help. He looked like a guy that knew, kind of like some people can only be brave if they have a gun. Yeah, I know I'm going to an extreme place, but that's okay. I know where I'm going. I know how to get there and how to get back. Some people can't be brave outside with just their hands. No, they got to have a knife. They have a gun. They have to have a baseball bat. What I'm saying here is we understand that he didn't have a gun, he didn't have a knife, he didn't have a baseball bat. But he had something the first time. Something that gave him the same kind of edge, the same kind of help that a gun or a knife or a bat would have, to give him belief that he can handle what he didn't believe he could handle, or he didn't know for sure that he could handle. He acted like a guy without the gun. He did not behave like he did the last time, like a guy that was confident. Now, you could go down the road of the other things that looked like they were missing. The fire, the explosiveness, that devastating left hook that he could throw, all of that. But I'll bring it right back to the confidence part, the belief part, the discipline of your emotion part. That those things still could have been there, but they're not being used, so they might as well not be there. Because you don't have the discipline, the belief, the confidence, the edge the edge to use him. Now, I don't know. We don't know that. All I'm saying is I expect of myself to say, if I'm going to do a show like this, to say all the possibilities, to say them no matter how they might affect certain people or where they might fall on some people's ears of liking or not liking, that it's a possibility. At the end of the day, it might simply be that, I hate to go down the road that he had an off night, but that he had an off night. People have an off nights. But we're looking at the symptoms. We're looking at certain things that kind of help us what the night was. And there was no spark. There was no fire. There was no. Now look, could I find could Dr. Atlas find another disease at work, another virus at work here that could have possibly been part of it? Yeah. You know what that one is? Making too much money. Maybe, yeah. Maybe that was the one. But I had to go the other place too. It's only fair. And I like Ryan because I think his core is a good person. I think that he's in search of himself still in a lot of ways. And he has been. But I think his core is he's a decent, good person. But he's made a lot of money. And he became famous. And sometimes when you make a lot of money and you become famous, you don't have the same urgency. And it shows. And he looked like a guy who had no urgency. Now, whether it was because of the confidence that he didn't have to stuff in him that he had the last time he was in a ring, or just because he's made too much money and he didn't have to drive, he didn't have the urgency. Either way, something was missing. And you want to also go down the road and say, he's overrated. You want to go, well, he wasn't overrated when he had good nights, was he? He wasn't overrated. Maybe he had the help of the PEDs. All right, but you didn't say he was overrated that night. I'm saying the possibility is everything that I just said, and it's very possible that he just has made too much money where the reason to take a risk is not there when his bank account was lower. When your bank account is lower, you'll take a lot more risks. When there's no food in the refrigerator, you'll take more risk. Do I really have to tell you that? It's true. When the cupboards are bare at home, you will go out there and you will do something to make sure those cupboards are not bare. So that's a possibility. Now, as far as Romero goes, look, Raleigh's a guy that always had talent. Could punch, he had talent, he had some explosiveness to him, but he talked more than he fought well. Like his talk and his bravado, his all part of promoting himself, I get it. All of that was always more explosive at the press conferences and everything else than what he actually did in the ring. He came up short in his biggest fight, whether it was Cruz, this one, that, he would come up short. But he still kept getting chances. We were like, wow, somebody likes this guy. Somebody up there likes this guy. Like the movie, that great movie with Paul Newman about Rocky Graziano. Someone up there likes me. He just kept getting chance after chance. And I'll say this. Maybe finally, with the little help of Ryan Garcia, because of what he did not do, but finally, whoever believed, there was Al Heyman is one of them, whoever believed in Romero and kept giving him these chances where people would scratch their head and say he loses these fights and he gets another big chance. Why? That belief was finally validated. I like that. I like that Romero that finally validated whoever was believing in him and giving him these chances that he validated it with this win. Now, I'm not saying it was explosive. A lot of it had to do with how much was Raleigh, as you said earlier, that I talked about the other day, and how much of it was what Garcia didn't do. How much was it that what Raleigh did? How much was it what Garcia didn't do? That's got to be in there. It's got to be in the mix as far as trying to figure out and evaluate this fight at the end of the day. But to put a bow on it, Raleigh did more than Garcia. Raleigh was a big underdog. Raleigh took advantage of this opportunity. And Raleigh's a guy, I think, a little bit like Haney, that's in search for himself, that's in search for his confidence, his belief, his real belief. And now he may have finally found it. He may have finally gotten closer to that. And just like Devin Haney, give him another fight now. Give him another fight to see, is this the real Raleigh Romero? The one that we thought, or somebody thought, could be a pretty good fighter. Give him another fight and see if he continues to grow. Because that might be just what the doctor ordered. And he got it that night and handed to him a little bit by Ryan Garcia, letting him get it, letting him grow. And he did grow a little bit in that fight. So I think at the end of the day, you got to see now if Romero gets better. And I think he will. Because I think that the things that I just touched on were at play.
Yeah, that was a very thorough breakdown and well said. And Romero did look different physically. He was
one other thing. I'm sorry, bud, but you just reminded me. He looked different physically. Yes. No PD. We're not getting there. Don't worry. I'm not going there. But he looked like he got on a weight program.
Yeah,
you're right.
Up.
He was more muscular.
And to your point, that might have gave him the confidence.
Well, I said it before the fight started when we were live streaming. I said that I could see physically that he got in the gym, he got on a weight program. It shows. He got bigger, he got stronger, and he may have done it for really not so much physical reasons, but for mental reasons, to give himself more confidence. Because when you get bigger and stronger, you get bigger. You get bigger, but not just bigger this way with muscles. You get bigger this way. You start to believe a little bit more. And I think that I give him credit, and whoever helped him with that. I really do. Raleigh, I give you credit because it helped you. It gave you, I think Garcia helped you a little bit. But, without meaning to, but he did a little bit. He opened the door for you a little bit to go in. But you went in. But I think that you were smart, or whoever was around you combined, to get on the weight program, get a little bigger, get a little stronger, and I think it helped your confidence. And one last thing, he's humble now. And look, I know losses will humble you. I know the guys on the street say, yeah, a little bit of an ass whooping, Teddy, that'll do something to humble you a little bit, Ted. That'll do a little something to bring that swelling down, that swelling in the head sometimes. Listen, whatever. I've seen plenty of guys, they never get humble. I see a side to him that you didn't see for those couple of years where all this and this and this and all that stuff. I get it. You're trying to promote yourself. You're trying to make yourself relative. You're trying to make money. I understand. But it got a little tough to listen to when he wasn't winning those fights. And now you could see he won a fight and he was humble. And you know what? It made him a lot easier to root for. I'm rooting for him. I'm rooting for Ryan too, but I'm actually rooting for him. And I know there's a lot of people out there that I'm mad. You paid money, you went out there. I'm with you. It was terrible performance. I'm with you. But my job here is to analyze the reasons why or the possibilities why. But I still like Ryan. I hope he finds himself. And I'm glad that it looks like Romero has found himself.
Yeah, and I'm with you. He did come off way more likable than in the past for Rolly Romero. And that was a great take, that you went somewhere with an angle that nobody else is going to. And that was deep and a really good take. The final thing I want to move on from this is a lot more fights to cover, but I want to ask you, Garcia versus Haney 2. Does that still somehow go ahead? Like an elimination bout after that? Or, hey, that's obviously not going to happen, and we'll see if it does happen down the line in the future.
I'll tell you one thing on that real fast. Haney deserves it because they sat there. I know what was going through. I think they would lick their chops, and they would hope to get it because they sat there with the two of them, the father and son, and I think two things were going through their mind. One, that a payday was kind of walking away, just right in front of, when you want to whistle, hey, come back. Oh, whoa. Come back here. The payday was just like, where you have bundles of money like in a wagon. It was just walking away. That was one. And the other one, I think, was anger. That they were saying, that's the real Ryan Garcia that we should have been in the ring with. I'm not saying it's accurate. I'm saying that I think I'm doing what you guys come here to our podcast. The reason why you come to our podcast, I would hope, is to hear things that you're not going to hear somewhere else. To break some things down that you might be wondering about. And you want someone to help you with it, to break it down. Or something that you might even be thinking yourself, but you need it verified. I'm just saying that I think the other emotion was they were pissed. They were like, that's the guy we should have been in the ring with.
Yeah,
absolutely. And you know what? And you know what, bud? With that, especially a father, I want my get back. I want my get back. You did that to my son. We took the beating. It took us a long time to get back after it. But you know what? I want my chance back. I want my son to have his chance back on even terms. Almost a little in a different way. You ready? Nobody else would go here. But a little different. Almost like Cotto and Margarita. Yeah, Cotto, the first fight, takes a beating with Margarita. Am I correct? Takes a beating with him, and was loaded gloves and all that stuff. And he couldn't live with walking away from it. Cotto wanted his get back. I want my revenge. I want my fight back on the even terms. I want to fight you again on even terms, and they did. And Cotto, of course, did what he did and dominated that fight without the glow.
It took time for him to get the rematch and get his redemption, and I think it's going to take time. I can't see how they could do this rematch next, but time will tell. So I think we covered that one pretty thoroughly, that whole card from New York, Times Square. So we'll move on to Saturday night, Saudi Arabia. Finally got some heavyweights in the mix. We had Martin Bakole versus F.A. Ajagba. Now, Bakole had won 10 fights in a row. He was becoming the boogeyman of the heavyweight division. And those 10 fights in a row came to a screeching halt after he took the fight on literally last second notice, jumped in the ring against Parker, fell short, was knocked out. I was surprised and shocked how quickly, that fight was February 22nd, he turned it around coming off a knockout loss to get back in there against Ajagba. I was expecting a knockout in this one, as most probably were. Two big heavyweights, like a punch. Obviously, Bakole, a big puncher. We didn't get it. Turned into a little bit more of a stinker. The trend here with less action than anticipated or wanted. But in the end, I thought Ajagba won the fight. I thought he did enough to not be able to complain at the end and allowed it to get a lot closer. But I thought he still edged it out. I had him up on the scorecards. The fight was ruled a draw. And also, with that being said, Martin Bakole, I was just disappointed. He had a full training camp for this. 299 pounds, but too heavy. To me, it looked like he was too heavy and he couldn't close the gap, bring his feet. Anyway, just want to get your thoughts besides the fight, also on the decision. Did you agree with it, or did you think Ajagba, like I said, maybe won the fight?
No, I thought Ajagba probably had an edge, but you know what? I thought Ajagba did have an edge, but maybe some of the rounds that Bakole won when he got close, he couldn't win unless he got close. He won maybe a little bigger because he landed big punches. That's the only way he could win a round, was to get close and then land bigger punches. And I give credit to Ajagba. He showed me a good chin, man, because Bakole can punch, and he landed some big shots when he finally got in close. So those rounds he won a little big. I still thought that there was some extra rounds, probably should have been on the side of the paper that said Ajagba's name. But having said that, it's not a terrible... It doesn't hurt either one of them. So it's not a terrible injustice that we see in boxing way too often. Way too often. So it's not that, because now they can get a rematch and they can both make money and they can clean up the mess, so to speak, and one guy can move forward to big fights. And there's a lot of big fights there in the heavyweight division. And Bakole has already been in those big fights. And, of course, as you said, he took a gamble. He took the fight on really crazy short notice, came across the world from Congo to Saudi Arabia with no sleep, no preparation, no time, nothing. And he got blown out by Joseph Parker. So, you know what? Give him another chance. Now, I'm not disagreeing with you. But I differ a tiny bit. I want to see Bakole get another training camp, because you even said it. It was so fast. The turnaround was so fast. I know that he got time. But by the time you get over the devastation psychologically and even physically of being in no condition and getting knocked out in one round by Joseph Parker, by the time you get back home, back to the Congo, and you get over that, and then you got to start getting ready for another fight, a tough fight against Ajagba, I would have liked to have more time to recover.
I'm so glad you just said that, because I was thinking to myself, he had enough time, and I'm not thinking to what you just said. So why is he saying he lost 10 kilos in 2 weeks? I think you just maybe nailed it and answered that for me.
That's where the trainer's hat comes in handy sometimes, just a little bit, where I just know that when you're coming off a fight and you lose, but you lose in a destructive fashion, he did. You need time to recover from that, to get into the next camp, to start getting right and ready for the next fight, and to correct things that were wrong. He didn't have that extra time to comfortably move into the next camp. He didn't have that. So I'm going to give him a little bit of a mulligan. I'm handing out mulligans here, buddy. A little bit. I might have to come on with a...
Well, that's what the draw was. We get the do-over. Yeah.
So you're right. So I want to see him again. I want to see him a full camp. Yeah, I want to see his weight down. I like him. I like the person he is. He's a good person. He really is. You can see that. He cares about other human beings. And he can punch. He's been down a tough road. He's come from a tough place. I really want to see this guy get another chance. And I like Ajagba too. And the fight was a simple fight. They're two simple men. They're two decent, simple men, and their styles are the complete contrasts of each other, polar opposites, but both are simple styles. And in both of them, it's all connected to what I like to say, which is the most important part of a fight and the most important part of handicapping a fight, the geography of the ring. Who controls the geography that makes the most sense for their skill set and who doesn't? Bakole, you don't need Teddy Atlas to tell you at 300 pounds and a big giant mammoth of a man and a big banger, he has to get close. He can't win on the outside. The tall, lean Ajagba needs to be on the outside, using his legs, using his jab, setting the table with the jab, and eat with right hands. That's what he does. That's him. Good or bad. Yeah, I know there's dimensions that maybe you could say could and should be added to an Ajagba. All right, but they're not. They're not. That's what he is. Jab, legs, distance, right hand. And he's got a good chin, he's got a heart, and he moves. When Bakole got close and trapped him on the ropes, he had his moments. And that's how the fight was going to play out. Who has control of the geography that makes sense for them the most? And for the most part, to your point, I thought that was Ajagba. And I think that if it's a rematch, I want to see it. It's heavyweights. Somebody's going to move on to a big fight. I'm interested because I want to see if with a full camp, a real full camp, I want to see if Bakole can get close and if he can really finish the job. He was starting to catch him a little, and Ajagba showed a hell of a chin. But I want to see him maybe in top shape where he can get close, not 3 rounds, because there was only about 3 rounds he got close. I want to see if he can get close in 6 rounds, 7 rounds, and what happens then. Or if Ajagba is so good that he doesn't let him get close. I want to see that fight. I'm interested in that fight.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I'm a big fan of Bakole. Just as you said, he is such a likable guy. You could see it. He's just he's a big teddy bear, right? I mean, this smile, everything about him, you want to root for that guy. And Ajagba as well. So we'll move on to the co-feature. We had the rematch, Bruno Surace and Haney Munguia. Now, the first fight was 6 months ago. Wound up being maybe the upset of the year and the Ring Magazine knockout of the year. Bruno Surace shocks Haney Munguia, 6th round knockout. And this time, completely different fight, not as much action. I said it during the live stream when we were commentating. I thought Haney Munguia was much more put together defensively. I thought he was more sound, more head movement, controlling range better. And in the end, maybe not the action that we wanted, but he fought a smart fight. He got his payback and his redemption. He wins a unanimous decision over Bruno Surace. What'd you make of this one?
Yeah, he was still what Munguia has to be. He's a big, physical, strong guy who's a pretty good offensive fighter, right? A game kid, a confident kid, a kid that to be at his best and to use the abilities that he has to be aggressive. He was aggressive again, just like he was when he got knocked out. But this time he was aggressive in a more technical way. He was more buttoned up. He was aggressive in a much more efficient, effective, and again, just defensively aware way. He was better. And as you said, and I said it in the live streaming, where with defensively more aware. You know, what are the questions about Munguia coming up? He was raw. We saw him get better. We saw him develop. But he was very raw. He was big. He was physical. But he had a lot of defensive liabilities. That was always the question. Can he improve his defense? He showed a good jaw. But could he? You don't want to depend on that chin. Sooner or later, you depend on it too much, you're going to have a problem. And he did with Surace. Not a puncher, but a guy who timed him with a punch he didn't see. And when you get timed with a punch you don't see, anyone could get hurt. There doesn't have to be a guy that's known as a power puncher. And that's what happened the first time. He knew he had to make corrections. He knew he still had to be him. He still had to be true to his identity. Otherwise, what is he? He's never going to be Pernell Whitaker. I mean, what is he? What is Munguia if he can't be big and aggressive? So he was big and aggressive again behind the jab, but more tightened up, smarter, corrected some of those mistakes. You have to give credit to Eddie Reynoso, his new trainer. You know, he tightened him up a little bit. He kept him aggressive. where he, he got rid of some of those defensive liabilities. Yeah, I thought that his trainer before, the legendary Mexican champion, who am I thinking about, Bud? His
Eric
trainer,
Morales.
Yeah, Morales. I thought he did a good job with him, and I'll tell you why. I thought he was the guy who started him, getting him moving his head more. And I said this in some of his prior fights. The problem was he was moving his head more with Morales, but he was doing it from too far away, where you could tell, where you're telegraphing, you're showing what you're doing, and the opponent could time you coming in. You can't move your head like this from too far away. You got to get close enough to draw the punch, and then move your head, and then be able to punch back. If you do it from space, from outer space, you're just waiting to be timed. You're just allowing your opponent, he knows you can't hit him yet, so he's calm, he's secure, and he's just going to look and watch you move your head like this. And he's going to wait and pop, he's going to time you. You got to move it when you're at a proper distance. And he was doing better with that and doing it behind the jab. So I thought that he's the same guy, but he buttoned up what he had to button up a little bit. Give him credit, give Reynoso credit for that. And then Surace, he was, I tell you, the problem with Surace, he's a good, solid fighter. The problem is, for the most part, he makes his living counterpunching. And he was able to do that in the first going with a little cooperation from Munguia, where Munguia threw a jab from a little too close, and he left himself open for a right hand that he never saw. I think it was a combination, if my memory serves me correctly, of him throwing a jab from too close, getting timed a beautiful right hand by Surace that he never saw, and also a combination of pulling back after jabbing with his left hand down, never recovering it from too close. And when he stepped back from too close, again, the right hand landed. The bottom line was the right hand landed without the benefit of Munguia being able to register in his mind a punch is coming. He never saw it. He got hit a blind punch. And when you get hit a blind punch, I'll make a comparison to it, bud. For the historians out there, Sonny Liston in a rematch with Muhammad Ali, where Liston was throwing a jab and Ali threw the phantom punch. They called it the phantom punch, where he threw a real like this, real pop, just pop, real quick right hand. Everybody said, "Oh, there's no way that knocked out Liston. He took a dive." And there's always was questions about Liston with the people behind him. All of that stuff. Did he take a dive? Did he take a dive the first fight? Was the fight fixed? The whole thing. He didn't take a dive the first fight, but did that fight get tainted by him? Giving up and was there something amiss in that fight? And again, the rematch. A phantom punch, the whole thing. I always thought that punch landed. That when he threw the jab, the right hand was so perfectly timed that Liston never saw it, and we couldn't really get a good glimpse of it unless the camera angle was perfect, because when he threw it, the shoulder kind of blinded him, and the right hand just stuck right in there. Like his own arm blinded him. Like when he threw it, he wasn't able to really see. And the right hand came right at the same time as the punch was coming out and went right over the arm and inside the shoulder where there was a blind spot. Kind of like when you're driving a car and you're about to turn. You look in the mirror, there's no car there. And you're about to make the turn, and then something tells you, wait a minute, let me turn my head and look to be sure. And you look and you say, oh my God, there's a car right there. You didn't see it. Why? It was in a blind spot in the mirror. I think that right hand of Ali's was in a blind spot with Sonny Liston. I think there was a similarity. The bottom line was Surace landed a perfectly clean right hand on Munguia that he never saw. But the reason why I thought this fight was so much better and obviously pretty dominant for Munguia was he stayed aggressive. He didn't give those opportunities to be counted. And once those counter opportunities were taken away from Surace, that's the problem with being a pure counterpuncher. They don't know how to create offense on the front end. They don't know how to be creative. They need your help to create offense. They need you to make mistakes. They need you to come in reckless, and then they can do their thing. But when you don't do that, now they got to create offense with the jab. They got to create their own offense on the front end, and it's just not. It's not in their wheelhouse. They're not equipped that way, mentally or technically. And I think that really was at play in this fight. Credit to Munguia. Credit to Munguia. Anytime you come back from a knockout loss and you come back and you had no confidence builder, you had no fight in between to let you know you were okay, give that man a lot of credit. Give him and his people a lot of credit.
Yeah, no question. Congratulations, Jaime Munguia, with the bounce-back win. And like you said, for Surace, solid little fighter. This is only his second fight now outside of his home country of France, both versus Munguia. He's on the map now. We'll be seeing him again, I'm sure. And we will see what's next for Munguia. A lot of big names out there. And Billy, could be one. Diego Pacheco, and many others at 168. So we'll wrap that up and we will move on to the main event. The King at 168. Canelo Alvarez defending all his belts versus the IBF champion at 168, William Scull. Scull, we talked about it before the fight, really good size, Cuban, got the Cuban pedigree and amateur background, and he made it a stinker. He was, as some would say, running all night, but he was on his bicycle, he was boxing, trying to pick his spots, fight from the outside, and then tying up Canelo on the inside. And Canelo was the aggressor, trying to come forward, trying to cut off the ring. We just didn't get the exchanges. We didn't get the action. I thought this fight was much closer than the 119-109 scorecard that was turned in. In the end, Canelo wins a unanimous decision. What'd you think of this one?
I think Canelo has to take some blame too. It was a stinker. Yeah, Scull, he didn't fight so much to win as he did to survive and steal the fight. And he fought that way. And look, let's put things in proper perspective and not get drunk and intoxicated here with the Kool-Aid of Canelo only. Because it's easy to be on the side of Canelo. And I get you. I'm okay. The other guy did run. The other guy did fight to survive. We've seen other fighters fight similar to this and still win fights.
Devin Haney.
We've not maybe to this extreme, but yeah, we've seen guys probably could use other examples, maybe even more so than Haney, but we have seen guys.
Well, I'm saying the movement of Haney was very similar on Friday to the movement of Scull.
Yeah, but Haney came back, did a little more offense. Look, I don't deny that you had Scull in there with the kind of style he had, where he thought his best chance to win was to fight this way, to run, to pot shot, to make it anything but an exciting fight. But in his mind, a fight that gave him a chance to win against a more powerful fighter, the stronger puncher, the better fighter, and a good counter puncher. So he was a little worried about getting counted. So he really, he just brought his bicycle. And he had, I think we should have been forewarned when he got in the ring with track shoes on instead of boxing shoes. That should have probably gave us a warning of tonight might not be an Oscar-winning performance, of really a great Broadway phenomena that's taken place that people are going to bring the house down to see. But in all seriousness, we have seen fights. We have where Guys have moved. Guys have pot-shot it. You know, guys have played it safe, even very safe. And they've either won a fight or we didn't give them quite the bad review that we're going to give Scull. And I'm not saying it's not justified, but when other people have done it and it wasn't done against somebody who's a superstar, somebody who's beloved, somebody who's the king of boxing pay-per-view and the face of boxing, we didn't get quite as mad. We didn't get quite as up in arms. We actually sometimes said he fought a smart fight. But when he didn't fight the kind of fight to make it an entertaining fight against our guy, against the popular Canelo, again, the king, so to speak, then we completely attacked the guy. So I think that that's got to be looked at a little bit, to be fair. I thought the fight was close. I thought the 119 score, 118 score, whatever the frick that judge was, that was just, he made up his scorecard before he left the hotel. I mean, he had Canelo going to win come high water, tide or high water, whatever that saying is. He had Canelo going to win. The other ones, 115, 113, all right. I know people are going to, again, they're going to crucify me for this, but if I'm nothing else, I'm going to be consistent. I'm going to say what I believe, even when hard rain's going to come with it. You know, sometimes, with the rain, you got to deal with the mud. You know, you got to deal with the mud. And I'm going to deal with the mud because I know mud's going to come with this. I could see even giving it to him. I could see the possibility of either being a draw or a 1-point win. Yeah, go ahead. Here comes the rain, the mud, everything else. A 1-point win for Scull. Teddy, who would you have given it to? I'm not saying I would have gave it to Scull. I'm just saying I wouldn't have been really shocked. I would have been shocked because I knew there's no way that Canelo's going to lose a fight there in these situations. They're not going to give it to anyone other than Canelo. That would have shocked me. But I wouldn't have been, in my mind, shocked that Scull could have earned a 1-point win or a draw. Now, at the end of the day, I have no problem with Canelo getting it. No problem. I could see Canelo. I maybe myself might, if I wanted to torture myself and watch the fight again, which I don't want to do right now. But if I did, I might even give it to Canelo by a point or two. I could see it either way. What I see mostly is that if technically Scull won, which I think there's a possibility he did, if we take our emotion out of it, our emotion of being angry, that was a stinker fight, that he didn't fight with bravado, he didn't fight the way we want him to fight, especially to take a title from the king, that he didn't do that, he didn't represent himself like a fighter, all of that stuff. If you put that aside, and I'm not saying I don't understand that, but if you put it aside and you just look at it in a cold way, I could see technically the reason that you could look at Scull to get it. But having said that, I wouldn't give it to him because I thought he lost the right to complain about being robbed. I thought it was the kind of situation where technically he could make an argument. I thought I did this. I thought I did that. I thought I squeaked it out. And at the end of the day, you lose the right to argue. You lose the right to complain. You lose the right to get us to be on your side and feel bad for you. You lose the right to cry. because of the way you went about it, the way you behaved. You didn't behave the way we want to see a guy behave in order to take a title. Not to even mention to take a title from a guy like this. You lost your right to complain. And at the end of the day, you do have to look at Canelo and say, okay, Scull is guilty of everything I just said, of fighting this ultra-defensive fight. But Canelo doesn't get a pass for not doing more. It still could have done more. He could have used the jab more. He could have closed the gap with 2 jabs and closed the gap. He could have jabbed to the chest of Scull. He's an experienced guy with over 60 fights, champion of many divisions, tremendous fighter. He knew that he could have done that. Why didn't he do that? He could have went to the body more. I know the guy was running, but tell me if I'm right or wrong, bud. In a couple spots, and it was only a few spots, where Canelo did what you would want him to do, what you thought he would do, what you thought he should do. When he doubled the jab and threw to the body, he got there. But he didn't stay there. Yeah, I know the guy skirted off the guy, but he got there. And it looked like he could have followed him. It looked like he could have continued. But he didn't. He broke it off. He was satisfied. He stopped. He said, I did enough. I'm going to ask a question. Canelo 5 years ago, the same thing I said about the other. What's good for the goose is good for the gander, baby. Same thing I said with the other guys, right? And breaking those fights down. If that's a Canelo 10 years ago, 7 years ago, I know that he's young and all, but that's not, does he not put more of an effort forward? Does he not fight with more urgency? He didn't fight with any urgency. Does he not fight with more fire? He didn't fight with any fire. Does he not try a little bit more because he is not quite as comfortable in his position in life as being anointed a great fighter? Not just the money, that he knows that no matter what, he's going to be thought of as a great fighter, a Mexican legend, a Hall of Famer, one of the greats of all time in the Mexican lineage of great fighters. If he hadn't quite gotten to that place yet, and he still had that in front of him, do you think he might have put forward a little bit more of an effort, even if he got a little reckless? I think he would have, because he would have had more of a reason to fight with some urgency. With all the money he's made, with all the praise that he has, with all the positions he's been put in, he doesn't really have to do that. And he fought like a guy who didn't have to do that. That's the only thing I can come up with. There's nothing else. It wasn't like he couldn't do it. Or one other. Father Time visited him, and he got old. There's nothing else. He got old. He's made so much money that he's not hungry anymore, that there was no urgency, like I said earlier with some of the other fights, that there was no reason to take a chance, to get reckless, to maybe look bad where he might have missed something. There was no reason for any of that. Or one other thing. As long as I got the Mexican fans ready to go nuts, let me finish the job. Let me finish it, okay? Or he's overrated. So you pick your pick. You pick your pick. I know what's coming. It's fine. You look for rain, you got to deal with the mud. Okay, fine. But it's got to be one of those things. I'm going to say it's just that at this point in his life, with all the money he's made, all the success, all the accolades, the placement that he's been put by people, that there is no threat to him. There is no urgency to him to have to go and do that. He could just do what he did. put his shoulders up, go like this. When Scull didn't engage him and didn't fight the kind of fight that we wanted, the kind of fight he wanted, he didn't go and track him down. That was beneath him. He didn't need to do that. No, I'm Canelo. Why am I going to do that? Why am I going to go and bust my butt and maybe look bad or whatever? Why am I going to do that? No, I don't have to do that. 7 years ago, he might have had to do that.
Yeah, no question. That's a great take. 34 years old, Canelo is now. And I also thought maybe the payday of Crawford lingering for September, and I don't know what it's going to be, but $100 million plus. He's made a lot of money. He's never made that for one fight. Maybe you take less chances because you don't want to take the risk and lose that payday next.
And you don't have to take the risk because they're not taking the fight away. See, that's the difference, but I'm so glad you brought that up. Because some years ago, before he was secure in this dome, this bubble, this protective cocoon, he's Canelo. Before that, he would have had to take a risk for the exact opposite reason of what you're talking about. That he might have blown that fight. I better get after this guy. I might blow that Crawford fight. He knew he wasn't going to blow it. He knew they weren't going to take the fight from him there. So he knew he didn't have to do that. And look, people don't like it. Too bad. Get over it. Because I'm speaking things to truth. Of course I'm not in his head. Of course I'm not in the ring. Of course I'm not in his body. But he either got old, he doesn't care no more, or, and there's no fire, there's no urgency, or he's overrated. And I'm not saying he's that. I'm just saying that it didn't matter enough to go and do what he had to do. It didn't matter enough. And you're going to tell me, and I'll finish with this, you're going to tell me he couldn't do the things, and I'll name 4 things that, bang, would have probably gotten to Scull. Double the jab up. When you fight a guy who's keeping range, you don't throw 1, you throw 2, it closes you in. Double the jab up, jab to his chest, stop his rhythm, stop his movement. Stabilize him, stabilize his movement. Use the jab to get closer. Go to the body, take air out of the tires, slow him down a little bit. Cut the ring off. Force him one way. Maybe you throw a left hook just to make a move to your right, and then step to your right and meet him with a right hand. Move him into punches. Close the gap. Fight with intensity. Throw punches. That's a good one to start with right there. Just throw punches. How's that? How's that one? Forget about all the other ones. You can feint a little bit. Feint. Make a move. Make a premature move. And then track them down. Know where you have to go. But how about just throw some damn punches?
That would help. That would be a start. And Son tells me he'll never be fighting at 6 a.m. again, which it was local time there in Saudi
He looked
Arabia.
sleepy. He did look sleepy. But the other guy was fighting at the same time.
Yeah, no excuses. He's a pro. The last thing I will say with this is I was cracking up during Canelo's post-fight interview. He was frustrated. He said, this guy didn't want to fight. He just wanted to run. That's why I hate fighting these kind of style of fighters. Then go fight David Benavidez, who is not going to run.
Beautiful. Beautifully said. Again, I'm proud of you. You just, I'm serious. Because, some people say, oh, you did this, you took a shot. And you didn't take a shot. You took a shot at being honest, at saying the obvious, saying the truth.
Well, that's a fight everybody wants to see.
You can't have it both ways. That's what you just did. You just caught him on. You want to say that you shouldn't fight guy, or you hate fighting guys like this that run. Well, you had the option, the choice to fight a guy who don't run, a guy named David Benavidez, and you chose not to. Okay, so please, again, you can't have it both ways. If you're going to make a statement like that, you know what? You should get called on it. But of course, those people aren't going to call him on it. I mean, they're all obviously working towards the same thing. Right. They want to keep their jobs, and obviously they don't want to knock the king. You know, they don't want to knock the guy that is part of the butter on their bread. You know, everybody wants Canelo to get to that Crawford fight. We understand that, and I want it too. We understand that, but at the same time, if you were not being controlled by not wanting to say some of the truths because you're a company man or whatever, and you're afraid to say certain things, so you have to say things that make that make everyone happy. That obviously you know what you should and shouldn't say, but to me, what you should and shouldn't say should only be controlled by what you think the truth is. That's all. And you would have loved somebody to say what you just said. To just say, as soon as he said that, but that would have been a problem. I get it. It takes guts to do that. It's hard to do that. I get it. It's very hard to do.
Where's Larry Merchant when you need him?
Yeah, where's Larry Merchant? Because Larry would have said, well, David Benavidez would have definitely not run from you.
Yeah.
Why did you not choose him?
And Jim Gray and others, but no, I'm with you, bud. And with that being said, September 14th, Las Vegas, Nevada, Crawford Canelo. It's on. You said it before this fight. You did a preview that's out there. We're going to circle back and do some more. You liked and favored Terrence Crawford heading in. And after watching this, I think a lot more people might be changing their minds, or Vegas might be changing that line. So we will see. We will move on. Keep it moving. A lot of fights here. Now let's go to Sunday. Talking about Las Vegas, Nevada. It was in Las Vegas, T-Mobile Arena. Before we get to the monster, the main event, Naoya Inoue, we're going to start off with the co-feature. WBO featherweight title. Rafael Espinoza defended his belt versus Edward Vasquez. Espinoza, full transparency, is a good friend of ours in the show. But regardless, what a fighter. What a talent. How fun is this kid to watch? Fan-friendly. He's 6'1" at 126 pounds. He uses the range outside, but he's not afraid to go inside, mix it up, throws a beautiful uppercut. Had his way. Gets the knockout, defends his title. What'd you make of it?
I'm glad you put it right out there. We know each other. We communicate with the fighter communicates with us. The manager really communicates with us once in a while. He's one of my favorite fighters, but also one of my favorite people. That's why I like him. That's why I love him the way I do. The way he fights, his talent, the way he uses his talent, his ability, what God gave him, but also just the way that he handles himself outside the ring as a person, as a human being. I identify that as something that makes him extra special. You know, there's other fighters that have that, don't get me wrong. I don't know some of the ones that do have that. I know plenty that do, but sometimes I might not know. I might not be aware. But if I am aware, then I'm going to make sure that I make it clear that means something extra to me. That he's got that kind of just human character about him as a person. He cares about how he is looked at as a person. He cares about the example he makes as a champion, how he carries himself. And I believe there's a strength in that. I believe that when he got dropped in his title fight against in the Cuban, tremendous. Yeah, when he got dropped in that first fight to win the title, he had to get off the floor. I believe that part of what helped him get off the floor to win that title fight was the character that I'm talking about him as a human being. That just that strength of character, knowing that you can depend on yourself, knowing that you believe in certain virtues and certain values, and you live a certain kind of life that is in your mind a worthwhile life, a life of, like I said, to be proud of, to have strength with. a lot of people are going to say, Teddy, how does that equate into helping him get off the floor, into having that strength? How it equates is when you're at that moment, at that most perilous moment, the most susceptible moment, the most fragile moment, most vulnerable moment. You're on the floor. You've been hurt, right? You have to believe in yourself, but you have to like yourself. You have to believe that you're a strong person, a decent person. You have to, if you at that moment believe that you've been a liar in the way you've lived your life, you've been a guy that hasn't treated people right, you've been a guy that's abused people, you've been a guy who's been weak. How are you going to be strong at that moment to get your feet under you and pick yourself up off the floor if you've lived a life that you know at that moment is going to come back and haunt you that has been weak? You can't, because you're not going to be able to summon that strength, because you didn't live a life to show yourself that you were strong, that you could depend in those areas. If you lived a life that had weakness in it of the abuses that I just talked about and the way that you conducted yourself, those things are going to come forward at that moment. There's going to be nothing to stand up on. And that's a deep place I just went. But there are other fighters like that. Inoue is a fighter like that. But I'm telling you that this is a fighter like that. And as far as the physical parts, he's been given height, length, power. Wiry guys like him, they usually generate power. They get leverage. They get torque. The Alexis Arguellos, the Suraces, the Bob Forsters, the Tommy Hearns, the Lou Jenkins, if you want to go way back. All of these wiry, skinny guys, they generate power. He generates power. And there's something else. He's got a rhythm to him. You see that, Bud, when we were doing the live streaming? He's smooth. He's silky. He's music. When he's getting into his combination, it's like good music. There's a beat to it. There's just a continuity, a rhythm to it. It flows. It doesn't get disjointed. And that's something. It's nice to watch. It's enjoyable to watch, to see that talent in certain kind of perfect synchronization, smoothly working like that. It's really nice to see that he's got the good eyes with the shorter guy. He knew to choose the uppercut. He understood that. He goes to the body as well as the head. He knows how to fight tall. He knows how to use those physical assets, advantages of fighting tall. But then, because his nature is to fight, and his nature is to leave the ring with the belt. And whatever that takes to do it, that's what he's going to do. If that means to fight like he's 4'3", in a freaking little phone booth, that's what he's going to do. He's going to fight like he's 4'3". But his heart is going to fight and pump like it's 10'8". That's what he is. He's going to do what he has to do. And he's got the options. Fight outside, fight inside. And he does both. So it's not like you can say, okay, I'm going to get inside on him and dominate him. No. He'll dominate you. He'll shorten his punches up. He'll be able to punch with you inside, go to the body, do what he's got to do. So you can't, with him, say, okay, I got a shorter guy, I'll just get inside. No, he has the ability. He's dimensional. That's what makes him a guy that has staying power. And he's got a great chin and a great heart. He proved that already in winning the title. He's only going to get better. And he makes exciting fights. He makes fan-friendly fights. I want to see him more and more because of all of those qualities. And look, there was some mistakes. When there were times when the opponent got close, he stood a little too tall and got hit with right hands. He had his left hand down. and he stood too tall. When a guy does get close and you're tall, you got to get your head out of that freaking center. You got to get small. You got to get, you got to get slick. You got to keep your hand up. You can't. It's a great advantage being tall when you got the shorter man on the outside. But when he gets inside and you stand up tall, now he has an advantage to a certain extent. There's a lot of target to hit. So you have to deal with that. You have to understand that. Also, I love the way he used his legs, bud. The way that he's so mobile. Again, he's smooth. He's agile. He's athletic. The way he moves his legs, where he gets to the side. Beautiful. He got nice angles by moving to the side where his opponent had to readjust, couldn't punch. He wouldn't let his opponent get set. The only thing he could have done a little better with that, and you brought it up during the live stream, not me. You did. Where when he did get the angles, he could have punched a little more. Because that's why you get the angles. You get the angles so you have an edge where you can hit him, he can't hit you. So you got to let your hands go when you get those angles. Take advantage of those angles. He could have done that a little more. At the end of the day, I want to see him in big fights. I want to see him in more fights, big fights. I want to keep seeing him.
Yeah, I'm with you. No question. He's one of my favorite fighters to watch. He is so fan-friendly, as you said. And that was deep stuff there. That was powerful. You got my juices going. That's high praise for a guy I think deserves it. And I just want to touch on this before we do move on Edward Vasquez. He was tough and he was game. And he came there trying. And this kid just picked up his third loss. All 3 losses now in his career to world champions. He lost to Joe Cardina. He lost to Raymond Ford, former 126-pound champ, who now moved up to 130. And now Rafael Espinoza. So just wanted to touch on that for Vasquez. And I'm with you, bud. I want to see whoever this kid fights, sign me up. But unification, Nick Ball, talk about that style of fight. Or how about the former champ, Brandon Figueroa, and that kind of style of fight?
Figueroa, I mean, first of all, if he ever fought any of those that you just mentioned, whoever does that counting of punches stuff that sometimes I can't depend on that.
They had the weekend off. They had a nice little break Friday.
Yeah, really. They didn't. You're right. They could take off. You're right, because there were no punches thrown, so there's no punches to tabulate. That they should get that one right, because I mean that there's so few punches. But for anyone who goes solely by those numbers, when it's a human being trying to stay up with a fight taking place at the speed that it takes place, where there's different angles where you can only see what you can see, and there's no way you can see all the clean punches. There's just no way. A human being cannot do it. So those punches, it's a nice little thing, to talk about and to have, and we've gotten used to it, and we've gotten lazy with it sometimes. Some commentators get too lazy. They depend on that. No, depend on your eyes. Depend on the impact of the punches that you just saw and registered to your freaking brain, that you saw who's winning the fight and what is really happening and why it's happening. Because again, to depend just on numbers by a human being who's trying to see punches at the speed of a fight that land clean and don't land clean, it's an impossibility to do it on any real accurate level. But look, again, it's a thing that we like to have. It's a thing that we like to be able to say, hey, look at this, and be able to use for the reasons we use. It makes our watching a little bit easier or more fun, I guess, in some ways. But at the end of the day, if Espinoza ever fought with Ball or with Figueroa, whoever would do those punch numbers would have to bring ice bags. They would have to bring a therapist. They would have to have gone into a training camp with their fingers. Their hands would have had to have been sent to a training camp for 2 months to get ready to deal with the endurance they would need for those matches. Because they're going to throw, and they're going to throw, and they're going to throw.
Yep, that's right. And we will move on to the final fight of the weekend, Las Vegas, Nevada. We had the monster, the 122-pound king, undisputed champion, Naoya Inoue, fought versus Ramon Cardenas. And Inoue might have gained a lot more Mexican fans after this. You always tell me, right? It's not how you start, it's how you finish. We started pretty bad, to say the least, this weekend, but we finished strong, in large part thanks to Inoue. A lot more Mexican fans are going to be rooting for him. He did save Cinco de Mayo weekend. Him and Espinoza did. Brought us the action. He picked himself up off the canvas. Second round, he was dropped by Cardenas, left hook. Cardenas, I never saw this guy before. He was a monster underdog coming in, and he impressed me. Put together some punches, nice combinations. He had really fast hands, and he threw, as you said during the live stream, he threw everything with bad intentions. But in the end, he pissed off the monster, and he woke him up. And Inoue did what he always does. He kept coming until he got the finish. 30-0 now, 27 knockouts. Still the champion, still the man. And it says he still wants to stay at 122 pounds as long as he can make the weight. What'd you make of this one?
The great ones, the special ones, the rare ones. People like Inoue, people like Usyk, people like Crawford, those kind of Sugar Ray Robinson, you go back. Henry Armstrong, you go back. Sugar Ray Leonard. I mean, I could go on and on and on. I'm sorry if I leave somebody's favorite out. But the point is, the great ones need almost something catastrophic to bring out their greatness. They need something to show how great. Yeah, they're going to destroy most people because of their greatness. Their great talent, their great mindsets, their great, responsibility to themselves to perform at the level they have to perform at and to push themselves at all times to do that. All of those things, they're going to go through a lot of people. But the real greatness doesn't really get seen until there's something threatening them. Then all of a sudden you see how great they are. And as good as he was up to the point that he got dropped, look at how good he was after he got dropped. He mixed defense with offense, and he didn't stop being aggressive. He still maintained his aggression, but he made a change, a subtle change, where he didn't walk after the guy in a way where he assumed that he wasn't going to punch, because this fighter that he was fighting, who could punch, who could throw concise punches, he didn't waste anything. He had a decent defense. There's 3 lines of defense. You use your legs, you move your head, or you block. He blocked. Cardenas was good at blocking. He was very good at waiting for the right moment to throw. He was good at counterpunching. He had plenty of heart. He had a good plan. He was hoping to catch the monster getting a little overconfident, a little careless, a little reckless, and he did. The monster was having his way. Cardenas was not throwing that much. That's his way. He doesn't waste anything. He only throws when he thinks he can land, when he thinks that it's the right time to throw, that it makes sense to throw. And he throws everything hard, and he throws everything without telegraph. He throws everything short and proper and concise and tight. There's no fat on his punches. So he was able to kind of lull Inoue into a little false sense of security, thinking, okay, he doesn't throw that often. I have a little bit of space here to follow him. I have a little bit of leeway, a little bit of liberty. I have a little bit of, just an opportunity here to just follow him, because I could depend on only throwing at certain times. But the thing with Cardenas that made his power mean something was he knew what time to throw. He knew when the opportunity made sense. And he saw Inoue come in with him, follow him, thinking nothing was going to come. A little reckless, his right hand down. And he threw the counter left hook, caught him, dropped him. And then Inoue showed his greatness. He realized right then, okay, he understood his mistake. But this is the greatness. He didn't say, okay, I will just use my legs. You could do that. I will just box. I will just stay away. I will just, fight a strict counter-punching fight at a distance because this guy can only catch me when I engage. No. Part of the greatness is the belief that you're great. Part of the greatness is the belief that when you've been hurt, when you've been threatened, when you've been challenged, when your greatness has been challenged, that you don't lose faith in it, that you show what you showed when you were getting rid of people when you didn't have to go through that. You show the same thing that you didn't have to show when you were demolishing guys, and it was not on you. It was not asked of you. It was not demanded that you get off the floor or you show anything else because it's all your way. You want to show that you're that same person with the same delivery, with the same talent, with the same way of going about it, with a confidence, with a bravado. You're that army that's marching up that hill, that's taking town after town. You're not suddenly splintering off to where, you got some guys going over here and you got some guys going over here and you're asking for some to fight a different kind of type. No, you're still that same army that has taken town after town, that has become legendary by marching right through in a way that you've done it. That's greatness. That nobody has convinced you that you can't do it that way anymore. Think about it. That nobody is, even when they drop you, they didn't convince you that you can't do it that way anymore. Yeah, they convince you that you do it tighter and smarter, but I'm still going to do it that way. I'm still going to do it that way. I'm still going to press you. I'm still going to back you up. I'm still going to walk into what looks like your greatest talent, your ability to punch, your ability to counterpunch. I'm still going to beat you the same way I was beating you the first 4 rounds or whatever rounds it was before he got dropped. I'm still going to do it the same way because not to do it the same way would show a lack of my belief in that approach, in that greatness, would show a lack of me believing that I still can dominate you this way. And he did. The only difference was instead of throwing 3, he would throw 1, move his head, boom, and then throw the other 2. He would mix the defense with the offense. He understood that the only adaptation, the only change, the only adjustment was not to be reckless, not to just still continue to march up that hill, still continue to take town after town, but to make sure that you're aware that there are people in those houses as you're coming that still take sniper shots at you, that you don't forget that. You don't forget that, but you're still going to go forward and realize your goal, which is to dominate this man and completely conquer him in a physical way, in a technical way, in a sensational way. And that's what he did. The only change was like I said, instead of throwing 3, okay, he'd throw 2. Now, a little defense, take care of that counter, continue forward, same way. Now You won't get caught with that counter. Yeah, he showed the heart. He's shown before. He's been on the floor before. Yeah, he's shown the Constitution. He showed what the old timers called the making of a champion, being able to come off the floor to win. He's shown all of that. And he saved boxing. He saved the weekend of boxing. It was fitting that the monster would be the last guy on the card to save the day. It was fitting that he would be that guy. And it was fitting it was on a Sunday, because Sunday short is called sun. And the sun was brought back because there was no sun on Friday and Saturday. It was cloudy. It was rainy. It was gloomy. It was sad. It was sad for the boxing people. But then Sunday was sunny because the monster was there with his friend Espinoza. With his friend Espinoza. But the monster never lets you down. That's why he's a monster. He's a smart monster. He's a complete monster. What is there about this monster that's not to like? He's got power. He throws his punches properly. He puts them together. He adds defense in with aggression. And he shows that he's human, that he can be hurt, that he can be dropped, he can bleed. But he shows the greatest ability that we have in life, the ability to make a choice to overcome. The ability to say, no, I'm not going to give in. The ability to be in peril, to be threatened, and still find a way to overcome it. To look at it as almost an opportunity. See, that's what the great ones do. They don't look at it as a mistake or as they don't look at it as in a negative way of, now I failed for this moment. There's no failure. They look at it as an opportunity. This is an opportunity now to overcome something that I didn't have an opportunity to overcome 5 minutes ago. To show how great I am. To use qualities that I don't get a chance to use every time, but I'm ready to use every time. I'm ready to use them every time. If something goes wrong, I'm ready to be stronger, better, find a way, and not lose one bit of belief. I look at it as an opportunity to, again, show something that someone else can't show. That's the monster.
That's the monster. That was a special breakdown for a special fighter. And a great breakdown for a lot of fights we just covered. There was a ton of action. I just want to remind everybody, the live streams are still up on the YouTube channel from Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. If you get some time, go back, check it out, take a look. We'll be doing more moving forward. And besides Teddy's commentary, we do a little in-fight live betting. So always do it responsibly, but you want to join us in the future, try to make a couple bucks. Teddy gave Romero live during the fight as an underdog plus money. And was close to almost nailing some of the other fights on the dot on the round for the knockouts. So just want to remind everybody, take a look if you haven't. Go check it out. Again, still on the channel for all the live streams. With that being said, bud, a lot of fights we just covered in boxing. But we're not done. We're going to wrap it up. We don't want our UFC fans getting upset with us. There was some good action. There was a UFC Fight Night. I'm going to jump right into it. We'll try to be a little bit quicker with this one. Corey Sandhagen versus Figueiredo, the former world champion, was the main event. But before we get to that, we had Rainier de Ritter fighting versus Bo Nickal. Bo Nickal was undefeated. Obviously, the big wrestler from Penn State has been getting built up. And this was his big step-up fight. And he fell short. De Ritter, my first exposure to him, I think, was UFC 311 a few months back versus Kevin Holland. I was very impressed, and I was more impressed after watching this one. It was good action while it lasted. I felt like Nickal at the end of the first round was starting to fade. You could see the gas tank was starting to get a little low. The Ritter was growing in confidence and growing with those knees. He didn't stop. He hurt him, and he hurt him often to the body, and he finished him with a beautiful knee. Seemed like right to the solar plexus. Anyway, the Ritter, second round knockout. Bo Nickal's first loss. What'd you make of this one, bud?
Bad matchup and mistake if you're managing. Normally, if you're managing and navigating the trajectory of your fighter, in this case, guy who they're trying to make a superstar, a phenom, like you said, from wrestling, undefeated, Bo Nickal, this was not the guy you wanted to fight at this point in his career. But that is what is really also you have to understand as to what makes UFC different. In boxing, this fight wouldn't happen. You have a manager, he would say, no, I'm not fighting this guy. Maybe 2 years from now, when there's more money involved and my guy's more experienced and it's not as risky a fight, but there's no way. There's no way we're taking this challenge now. We're taking this risk. There's just no way. We're not doing it. And instead, you would get the fighter coming up who's 8-0, who's a phenom from the amateurs, just like Bo Nickal, but in boxing. You would get him to fight, a soft touch, an easy touch. And that has hurt the brand of boxing, where you're getting these non-competitive fights for the first 2 years of these kids coming out of the amateurs that are these projected champions, these projected possible superstars, like a Bo Nickal, where they're being given fights to build their record, build their confidence, okay, but then they get more than they need with that because they were good enough to fight 200 fights in amateurs, win the Olympics sometimes, win at an international level, yet for 2 years you continue to feed them nothing but cannon fodder. And what happens? Two things happen. One, the brand of boxing drops off. Fans get disinterested. Fans start to get, they run for the hills. They say, I'm not going to watch non-competitive fights. So you hurt the sport. But then also, those fighters, they don't get the fights they need to develop. Once they get past a certain amount of fights, then they need to fight better fighters so they can start to develop. They can start to be tested. They can start to be challenged. They can start to know what they got to get better at. Now, I'm not saying you do it too soon. It was done too soon with Bo Nickal. It was. But in boxing, it is done way too late. That after a certain amount of time, maybe a year, 2 years, it's time to step up, and they don't. And then when they finally get to that place, sometimes they're not ready. They're undefeated, but they're not. That is the greatness of the UFC. That is what I want to make a point here before the breakdown of the fight. That the UFC, you get good fights every week because at a certain point, there are no free lunches. There are no freebies. There are no layups. There are no slam dunks handed to you to just dunk that ball. No, you have to. You gotta be able to swim in the deep end. You get put in, and what happens is later on, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, you'll see these guys with 5 losses, 6 losses, 7 losses, 4 losses, whatever. But you'll see guys that are chiseled fighters, that are forged fighters. And you'll look at him and you say, oh my God, he's got 4 or 5 losses, but this guy could beat anybody. Yeah, you know why? Because he was chiseled to be a fighter. He was forged to be, because he fought the kind of fights he needed to become a better fighter. Instead of avoiding the fights he needed to become a better fighter, to keep a better record. He gave up the record to become the fighter that he is now, that he wouldn't have become otherwise. because he faced what he had to face. Now, having said that, Bo Nickal was not ready for Dorita. But guess what? In the UFC, this is the way it is. That is the rite of passage. That is the law of the jungle. That's the rule. That's just the way it is. Now, Bo Nickal will wind up, maybe, if he's got the goods, maybe. Or maybe he doesn't get over this. Maybe he doesn't get over it. But if he does have the goods, he'll become one of these guys with 2-3 losses. Not the guy with no losses that will be chiseled into a real fighter. And maybe the potential that they thought he had from the beginning. Or maybe it was too soon and you never see this guy again at the level. Or he got exposed. So you're never going to see him at the level you were going to see him. But the Riddler was too big. My God, he was big. He was too big. He was too strong. He was too good. And he was too confident. And he was too mentally, I'm going to stick with the same word, chiseled. He was too, maybe those 2 losses, whatever. But he was too mentally chiseled for Bo Nickal. Terrible matchup for Nickal. But Nickal got beat in the first round, and you alluded to it. You're good, you. Remember that movie with De Niro?
Analyze this, De Niro.
You're good, you. You.
Yo. You got a gift, my friend.
You're good. Where you hit it on the, you were right. The first round, I saw it. In the first round, when Nickal didn't get his way, when he couldn't dominate in the area that he dominates, wrestling, getting the takedown. He got a takedown, but he couldn't get position, he couldn't control, he couldn't do what he normally does. When he couldn't dominate, when he couldn't be the boss in his area, the wrestling, he's Bo Nickal, this phenom wrestler. When he couldn't do that, you could see the air come right out of the balloon. The air being the confidence. He now was like, oh, now what do I do? You could see it. You could, if you know fighting, you could see it. And I don't mean fighting. You could see it in anything in a fight in life when a guy starts falling apart. It doesn't have to be in a cage or in a ring. But you could see that suddenly that he knew that tonight was going to be different. He wasn't going to have his way. He was going to be asked a question that he didn't know if he had the answer yet. Can I depend on myself when I don't get my way? Holy smokes. That's a tough question to be asked when you don't have the answer. So he was already defeated halfway by the time the bell rang for the second round. That's really what happened. And then he couldn't dominate. He knew he couldn't dominate. He couldn't get what he needed, to have control on the mat, to have control inside with his great, great, great wrestling skills. This guy's big. This guy's well-rounded. This guy's confident. This guy has already answered the questions that you didn't answer yet. He's already had those questions, and he answered them. He got the answers already. I can depend on myself. And then what did he do? Bo Nickal, almost out of, I know everyone wouldn't notice this, but almost out of, I don't want to say desperation, but really at grabbing for anything he could, he threw a couple punches that you could almost see. Yeah, he threw them, give him credit, he threw them, but he almost threw them just to go through the motion of throwing them because he was already in the throes of being broken down. Almost submission. I'm not saying he submitted, but he was going down that road. That road, and it was going fast. And it wasn't going back up. It was all downhill. And so he just threw those two, hoping it would do something, but they did nothing. They didn't have enough behind, and this guy just took them, walked through them, made Bo Nickal back up. He backed up. I know he hit him with a few knees before that, But then he marched right to him, and he hit him with that final knee, where he already found out he had a home for the knee. That's the experience of the Riddler, too, his experience. I already know I can land this, and he ain't going to do nothing to stop me from landing it. I don't see anything changing. So he went and landed one more. And, man, I know how devastating it is when a fighter in my business gets hit a left hook to the liver. I don't even want to think about what it feels like when you get hit a knee to the liver.
Brutal. It was brutal, vicious. And, that was a great breakdown. And we will see Bo Nickal, what's inside of him, right? And being able to come back from this. And we will see what's next from the Ritter, who I was very impressed with and excited to see him fight again. Let's take it and wrap this up. It's been a long one. The main event, we got Corey Sandhagen fought the former world champion Brazilian Figueiredo. Sandhagen, in the end, he was just too much for the smaller Figueiredo. He winds up getting the win. This is his first win since bouncing back versus last fight, which was a loss versus Umar. He's now won 4 out of 5. And when I was listening to you just talk about the last fighters, Bud, with Bo Nickal and the Ritter, it made me think of this guy right here, Corey Sandhagen. You talk about chiseled into the mental fighter, of taking some losses, of being forged in the fire. Well, that's why he has 5 losses, but he's better from it. I'm a big fan of Sandhagen. I think he's earned the right to be right there for the title shot. What'd you think of him? What'd you think of the fight?
I think you're on the button with that one again. I'm a big fan of his, too. First of all, Figueiredo is a veteran champion, former champion, just tremendous. But he's getting on. You know, he's not only getting older, but he's been in a lot of tough fights. And listen, he was good enough to win the other night if Sandhagen wasn't good enough to beat him. In other words, he would have beat a lot of other guys. Sandhagen has become what the other night was the coming out party, the summation, the final product of a guy who's been put in tough fights. He's 18-5. He's got 5 losses. A guy who just kept getting put in tough fight after tough fight, and he kept learning from every fight. He kept getting better. He kept getting forged in a fire. He's got good size. He's very complete. He's very, very dimensional, standing on the floor. There's no real weak spot to Sandhagen. But what the losses, he's the perfect example of the difference between boxing and UFC. Those 5 losses served him to become what he is now. And you know what he is now? He's close to being a monster. He's a problem. Those 5 losses and his perseverance of sticking with it and knowing what the UFC is all about and what it demands, that there's no free lunch, that you have to go through your test, that you have to walk through the coals, that you have to go through the fire. All of that, he knows what the purpose of it was. I think he's the kind of guy that knew all along. Yeah, I'll lose some now, but you know what? I'm going to freaking see you later. I'll see you later. Because I'm going to take all of this. There's a purpose to this. There's a journey to this. There's a reason for this. It will make me the fighter that I have to be made into, that I will be made into, that I know I can be made into. He's got good body. He's got good size. He's athletic enough. There's not one area where he's sensational. He's solid in every area. But there is one area he has become maybe sensational in, this area. Well, by going through all those tests, all those fights, he is not going to beat himself. He is not going to give you a free one. You're going to have to earn it. And he's at the place now. He has graduated through those losses, through that journey, through the walk of that fire. He has graduated to a guy that doesn't believe, that believes that anytime he gets in with anyone, he will win. He has gotten to that place. He has earned that place. But he has gotten himself to that place where he believes that anyone, and there's so many unbelievable, talented, dangerous guys in the UFC. He believes now, unequivocally, that he can be ready to beat anyone he gets in that cage with, because he has become that guy. He has really become that prototypical, what you want, that prototypical guy, that example of a guy that is just hardened and forged and developed into where he finally gets to that place where he can challenge anyone because he knows he's ready. He knows he's ready, inside and outside. Man, this guy, he deserves a title shot. I don't know if he's this close to it or he's right there. I don't know. But he deserves a title shot. I want to see him get one because he's an example to everyone out there. He is the blue-collar boogeyman. That there's not one area, like there are with some of these stars there, where he's so phenomenally quick or strong or powerful or this or that, like a Pereira. You know, with that power, that punching power. He doesn't have one area of that neon stuff that jumps out at you. But he is a problem, like you said, because he has forged himself in all areas.
Yeah, he has. Huge fan. Agree with everything you just said. And nicknamed the Sandman, just like one of my favorite Yankees, the Sandman, Mariano Rivera. He closed the show. So before we close the show here, Bud, I just want to remind everybody, we will be back our episode to our Monday's airings, not on Tuesday next week, so be on the lookout for that. Live stream, just a reminder, all the fights are up. We'll be having more coming forward. We'll let you guys know. And on Thursday, be on the lookout. Teddy will have his next historical list. So any final words before we sign off, Bud?
Yeah, I won't keep them in the dark. I'm going to put a list of greatest middleweights. I hope you guys want to see that. Greatest middleweights of all time. I think that's a great category. That's a great division.
Loaded.
It's loaded. It's loaded. I mean, look, the great thing about middleweights is you got what everyone wants. You got power. You got explosiveness. You got knockouts. But at the same time, you have to have technique. You know, you have to have sophistication. You have to have, all the other ingredients too. But you have it at a dangerous level of power and of the possibility that you make a mistake, you pay big price for it. So I hope people like that. I hope they enjoy it. We'll be next week. We'll be back to our Mondays again, right, Bud? We'll be back to Monday. Of course, again we did Tuesday because we wanted to do the Inoue fight for you, and that meant we have to watch it on Sunday. But thank you guys, for being here. Appreciate you. We're going to keep the content coming. My son is making sure of that with the live streaming, with the list, with all the other gadgets that he's working on. He's got a lot of stuff up his sleeve. He's got a lot of stuff in store for you guys, where every day of the week, something's coming. So keep an eye out for it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys. Please like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for being with us, and we'll see you next week.